This week on the House of Bread show, I'm let down by a cameraman, so I apologise for lack of angles. House of Bread on Stafford FM. And we also hear about the collection over the weekend in Asda. And as always, much, much more. Well, hello once again. Welcome to the House of Bread video log. This week I'm joined by Will once again.
Good morning.
Very lonely us two here.
Just us two. There will be special guests, I promise.
Good.
More people will be arriving.
Tired of our faces.
Yeah.
Right, so
no banner.
Yes, we've got no banner. Hopefully you can see Will this week. We've got no banner because that was we'll go straight on. That was in Asda.
It was. Thank you, Dan Roberts, for setting that up. It was a 2-day job, collecting food and donations, and I understand there were a couple of people who made inquiries about being volunteers.
Yes.
So thank you, Mick Bolt, Wendy Bolt, for doing Friday. I bobbed in a bit, and then Saturday we had Dave, Lisa, Karen bobbed in for a bit, Lionel, Jack.
That's me.
That's you. And yeah, we raised a couple of £100, which is fantastic. We collected a load of food, and more importantly, I guess, we engaged with a lot of people about the House of Bread, and it was really positive.
Yeah.
It was really nice. So we were able to give information out. A lot of old friends, a lot of new people, and as I say, people who were genuinely interested in volunteering.
Yes, I was going to say that's while I was there on Saturday, and about 4 people came up
which
and
is
said
fantastic.
They'd love to volunteer.
And we're doing it again in a couple of months' time, and again we'll put a team together. So if you're watching this and thinking, oh, I've got a couple of hours, or even an hour, you fancy spending time in Asda chatting to people, it's really, really good, and it gets us out and about.
We'll be in Tesco for a whole week at some point.
Yes,
but we'll mention
we're moving into Tesco's.
Yeah, so that was brilliant.
It was.
Right, now moving on, we seem to mention them every week, but they are very generous to us. Stafford FM.
Yes, Stafford FM, lovely people. Ian Fernyhoe was the latest sort of contact. Matt and I was on his show on Saturday, I think. And while we were on, we were chatting about the garden and what's happening about that. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. He asked us if we would be on his gardening question and answer session on Sunday morning on his show between 9 and 9:45. So Matt and I have taken up the challenge, and in fact Matt was on this Sunday from 9 to 9:45 with Buxton's, who sponsored the slot, but he was talking about gardening in general, but also the reference to community gardening, getting your fingers dirty. So he was on last Sunday. I will be on talking about fruit and veg, because I know so much about that.
You used to have your own vegetable
I did have my, yes. Well, thank you for reminding me. So that's very good. So that will be on this Sunday, 9 o'clock to 9:45, 107.3. And I'm hoping to persuade them that perhaps they'll let us be visitors and pop in and give a little bit of progress, because it's about everybody who can garden. So whether you've got a window box or a cobbled area, it's getting your fingers dirty.
Well, there's loads of allotments in town, so probably
and if you're allotment,
a few people are listening, have probably got a garden.
It's great exposure for us. We get to listen to some 70s, 80s and 90s music, which is always good. So yeah, it's awesome. So thank you, Stafford FM. It's been a lot of fun.
We are ever present, and as somebody mentioned earlier, compostly on people's minds. Great pun. Right, anyway, we'll move swiftly on, but not too far from the community garden, because the container's being moved.
Yes, this Thursday or Friday, Matt's arranged for the container to be moved from where it is to its permanent site, which is really good, because then it can be clad in wood, and we're talking about putting a roof in so we can collect all the rain. And in fact, the container is going to have multi-uses, and a little bit more about that perhaps in a couple of weeks' time, which is really interesting. So we can keep the whole concept of recycling going. There's a hint in there. But yeah, the container's moving, so prayers please for that, because it's raining where we are at the moment. But
the ground has to be dry.
But that will make a difference.
Absolutely pouring down with rain at the moment.
The fence will go up, the raised beds will go out. So the next sort of 10 to 15 days will really look as though we've got a proper garden. People can start getting involved. We're working with somebody who Matt met at church, who is wheelchair bound at the moment, and she's going to come along and be our special consultant to make sure we've got the paths, all areas, all the time, for everybody. Really important.
That's brilliant. That's really good. That's key. Right, fantastic. It all sounds very exciting. As I said last week, it is always exciting.
It is.
So last week we heard from Angela Williams about One Recovery.
Yes.
But this week we moved into our little cupboard.
We did, yes. We've moved into our office/storage/cupboard, which is small and bijou, but it contains all the things that we would need in an emergency, whether it's us or One Recovery. You know, One Recovery supports people with substance misuse. So it's things like emergency sleeping bags, tents, food supply, toiletries, toiletries, bits of clothing. And it gives us a town centre location, which is really great because we can meet our friends in town and we don't have to go all the way over to the unit, for example, to get stuff.
Well, it's another point of contact, isn't it?
It's another point of contact. Plus, we're working really well, so we're going to their drop-in sessions now, and we've picked up a number of folk at those drop-in sessions who know House of Bread, and there's a real reassurance that we're working together, and they've become involved in some of our projects. So it's really exciting. But to have a town centre location with access to that when we need it, is just fantastic.
And it's fantastic to get everybody working together as well, because you don't want people fighting to help people.
No. Everybody needs help. It doesn't matter where it comes from. As long as they get help, we're cool about that.
And if we all know who everyone is, then that's even easier and quicker to help people.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Indeed. Good.
Right, so we seem to be mentioning everything we've mentioned ever before on the vlog, because we're going to mention Walton High School again.
Oh yes, well we're off to Walton High School this Friday. We're talking to you. Well, we're showing and demonstrating bread making and the history of House of Bread, and there's also a quiz in there. So thank you, Andy Stokes, for all of that to make that happen.
So what exactly will we be doing?
Right. Well, we've divided the groups up into 4 groups, I believe. The first group are going to be making the bread initially to start with. We're going to take the dough in a huge container, and they're going to form it into 2 little loaves, which is one to keep, one to give away.
As always.
As per normal. The second group will be off doing a quiz, and I'm hoping that Lisa and or somebody else, I think Mr. Dave Hanley might be drawn into that one. And it's a quiz about House of Bread, because we want to see if they've checked out our website. It's a question about maybe busting some myths about who they think is homeless and who is vulnerable. So that's another area. And we're also going to talk about the history of House of Bread, because I know they're involved in projects which they want to take forward, so we'll be talking about that. And then we're also doing another thing where we're asking them to bring in a couple of magazines, and we will ask them to cut out pictures and images from that magazine that represent what the House of Bread is about, and then they will put it up on a sheet, and then I will go around and I will discuss how they've chosen to do that, because each person will replicate the way they feel about homelessness in those pictures, and it's a really telling way of somebody understanding what they feel about it, and it's just people getting a little bit more under the skin about what House of Bread is about.
And they'll all move around, so they'll all get a go.
And they'll all get a go. So I think there's 5 groups. So it's a really good thing, and I have a real obsession about younger people understanding and making some changes so they do stick to their education and understand that that's a really important aspect of growing up, hard and difficult though it might be, because there are exams on this week, I believe.
Yes, not this week, for the whole of the month.
Is it?
I can't remember.
That's where Ryan is all the time. Head down.
And it's a good. Bread Church is a really good way of that first point of contact, because it is really fun, and you get people having a good time, and then you just slip in what it's about, and people are like, okay, I get it.
No, good point.
Right, so I think that's it for this week.
It is, Jack.
Very pleasant week it was. So yes, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.